We're back when the Giants and Dodgers played in New York. I'm Ralph Tyko. My host is Peter V. Trunk. How are you, Peter?
I'm fine, Ralph. How are you?
Oh, terrific. And one of the reasons I'm so terrific is because we're blessed with a guest of prominence. He's an author. Yeah, it's his first-time book. It's published. It's entitled, it's the biography of Prince Hal Schumacher. That's the way to pronounce it. Hal Schumacher. His name is Roger Melin. Welcome to the zone, the airwaves, and we're happy to have you, Mr. Melin.
Good to be here, Ralph, and thanks, Peter.
You're welcome.
Well, he's got some pipes. Am I right, Peter? I think
yes, he does.
Yes.
He should do voiceovers.
Yes, he could do voiceovers for us, and we wouldn't be needed. That's what's
right.
scary.
This is CNN. I could just hear him now.
Well, I could just hear him now on Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Roger, where'd the pipes come? Did you do radio in your day?
I did, actually, for a short period of time before Uncle Sam decided he had other things for me to do.
Okay, and which I have no idea how old you are, so I'll just guess that it was during the Vietnam era?
It was indeed.
All right, and Peter and I are both 69 and proud of it because not everybody gets to be that old. May I ask how old you are?
You may ask. I'm 65.
65, so you're...
He's a baby. He's a baby.
I'm a young pup.
He's a young pup.
What did you retire from at one time or another?
Well, I retired from computer programming mostly. I did a lot of programming over the years and other computer-related projects.
Oh, wonderful. And what inspired you to write a book about an old Giants hero before our time, certainly before your time, Mr. Melin? Why Hal Schumacher, and what got you into baseball? Tell us about you and all of this. It's your passion.
Well, there's a lot to tell, I guess, if you want to go way back. Of course, growing up in the Boston area, all we got on our cheap little radios was the Red Sox. And,
right.
Well, I fell in love with the Red Sox. I fell in love with baseball, and I've loved it ever since. I started reading a lot of baseball biographies, 10, 15 years ago or so, I suppose. Just voraciously, and I found that the best ones, or the ones that I enjoyed the most, were basically the older players. And I to narrow that down a little bit, I found that the 1930s, for some reason, I enjoyed more than any other era, I suppose, for a number of basically unknown reasons, I guess, but. As I followed that more closely, I found myself eventually relocating to the Mohawk Valley, and coincidentally, not too far away from the village that Hal Schumacher was from. Of course, to be honest with you, I really hadn't heard much about Hal Schumacher at the time, but I had some friends from Dolgeville, which is where Hal Schumacher was. He lived his entire life, basically. And my last visit to Cooperstown, sure enough, there on the wall is a picture of a huge picture, photograph of Carl Hubbell, Hal Schumacher, and Cliff Melton. And the guest I was with, who was one of my friends, said, "There's Hal. Would you take a picture of me with him?" And I said, "I sure will," and so I did. And it took off from there. I said, "Hal Schumacher, let's find out some more about him."
So just kind of serendipity, really, more than anything else. you moved to an area. You must have heard stories about him in the area that you moved to.
I did, yeah. I heard little tidbits here and there.
Was he a good guy, an intense guy, a mellow guy, a good neighbor? What was he like?
Now, of course, I never met him. Okay, he had passed away by the time I had really become interested in him. But he passed away in 1993. But basically, it's funny you should ask that question, because he was more or less all of those three. He was a good guy. There's nobody that'll argue with that. He was an intense guy when it came to playing ball. When he was on the field, he was extremely intense. He was focused. Now, I've learned this. You ask how I've learned this. I never met him, and of course I never saw him play. But all the reading I've done, all the research I've done, and it was substantial, believe me. I'd spent 7 years on this book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was a very intense guy, but he was well liked by his teammates, and he was well liked by everybody in the village where he lived. You won't find a soul that would say a bad thing about him.
Was there anything quirky about him in any way that made him interesting? That not that just did he have his idiosyncrasies? Was he learned? Was he an expert at stuff?
Well, there again, we can say a lot of those things, because he was very learned. He was a college graduate. He graduated while he was still playing, or shortly after he had started playing for the Giants. Quirky, I would say, he was wild. Okay, he had a tough job commanding his pitches and finding where the strike zone was, and that's through his entire career. Make no mistake about it. He had as many walks as he had strikeouts, if you look at his stats.
Wow.
But so he was, but his career, he had the most unique career that I think I've ever read in some respects. One of them being 1933, which his golden year, basically, because that was the year he graduated college. He went to the University of, or St. Lawrence University up in Canton, New York, which was a pretty good drive for him. It wasn't like it was right next door. And he was already with the Giants at the time. He joined the Giants in 1931. But he was a full-time pitcher by 1933. He was on the starting rotation along with Hubble and a few others. But
Tommy Hoy, I think, was one of them, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure about that.
Maybe he came later. Maybe those were war years. When you say you worked hard at this, did you interview people from his hometown?
Yeah, I interviewed a few, and of course, like I say, my friends knew him personally, to a degree anyway. I mean, they weren't best friends or anything like that, but they knew him personally. Certainly knew his family, knew his wife, and his brothers and sisters. But what was, to get back to, if I may, just for a moment, back to his 1933 season, again, going back to what was so unique about him was the fact that when he graduated in June of that year, June of 1933, he graduated from St. Lawrence University. The entire Giants team hopped on a train, went up to Canton, New York. Now, again, that's not a short drive. We're talking about going, well, you're from New York. You have a rough idea where it is.
And Peter is also, so he has more than a rough idea. Peter stayed in New York. I migrated, so you got to see it as an adult. That's a nice, pretty good ride through some beautiful country. Am I correct?
It is indeed, yes.
Yeah.
If I could interject just for a second.
Please.
Sure.
when you say that the entire Giants team got hopped on a train and went up to his graduation, any guy that had the nickname Prince had to be well liked. Let's face it. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't just get the nickname Prince because you're some sort of negative guy and a complainer or a bitcher and moaner or whatever. He must have been really loved.
Good in the clubhouse,
kind of
well respected. You would think. How did he come about his?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
That's
was 33 or 34 the year he won 23 games?
That would have been 34.
Okay, that was his only 20-game season.
That's right. 33.
He had over. I took a peek. I knew you were going to be our guest. I took a peek at two things: where you were from. That's why I asked you about the Red Sox. And I also took a peek at Schumacher real fast, and I noticed that throughout his career he had over 2,500 innings, but he only struck out 900 guys. He was 6', 190, which wasn't small for back then, but evidently he didn't throw very hard. He wasn't a swing miss guy, and he still won 23 games, which is amazing. And I just caught my eye before I clicked off the page. He hit 15 home runs lifetime and batted over 200. So that's not too shabby.
No, for a pitcher, anybody who bats over 200 is a pitcher with any kind of power whatsoever. Those are good numbers, very good numbers.
Well, he
played after the war. See, he was a pre-war player in the 30s, but his career lasted. He played in 1946, so I assume his career was obviously interrupted by the war. What were some of his wartime experiences?
Yeah, he joined the Navy after the 1942 season. Right on time, right? And joined the Navy and was aboard an aircraft carrier. He was a lieutenant, so he was an officer aboard an aircraft carrier. He started out in the Navy actually by managing a few baseball teams, but when the action really started heating up, he saw plenty of action in the Pacific, but none of it was, let's say, life-threatening, if you will, at least as far as the war was concerned. It was as the weather was concerned. He ran into some terrible weather. In fact, one of the carriers that he was tailing sank. They were only a few miles behind it, and it went down. But luckily, his didn't. It listed something fierce, something 30 degrees or something like that, but it stayed afloat. But he didn't see any combat activity, so to speak. Well,
he went into the Navy, as did Charlie Fox, who was his catcher on the 1942-43 team, and they both served together, if I'm not mistaken. And that's how you and I got in touch way before Facebook, when I had my blog, and I was doing a series of interviews for a college, Cal State Hayward in Northern California, with old, or not necessarily old, but former players, coaches, managers of the New York City scene back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I had Leonard Coppett, Hank Sauer, Joe DeMaestri, Charlie Silvera, among others. And one of them was Charlie Fox, who at 20, as a New York Giant, came up, a Bronx kid, New York boy, was catching these guys, Carl Hubble, Prince Hal Schumacher, and Dummy Hoy. And that was pretty cool for a 20-year-old kid who really, when he got out of the service, as he told me, he was kind of shot from being in the service. Not literally, but took a lot out of you. So the action that the prince saw had to be hellacious, and those the last Great War and all of that. How did he get his nickname?
Well, really, just the way you described it a few minutes ago. He was very well liked. As you said, no team is going to go up and see somebody's graduation unless they really like the guy.
And Wayne said that. Absolutely, yes.
His teammates did like him. And anyway, Prince Hal was the how shall we say it? He went along with King Carl. You got King Carl, and then you got Prince Hal, and they were the
right.
He was the John Matlack of his time.
There you go.
Very well put.
I knew.
He was a right-hander. Yeah, I mean, that's good though. Hey,
right?
Was Charlie Fox
a classy guy?
Manager of the Giants?
What was that?
Pardon me?
The Charlie Fox that you just referenced.
Yes,
Did he
yes.
manage
He had
the
later
Giants?
managed the Giants. I did an interview with him about the year of the Fox, 1971, when they were in San Francisco. And
I have a rumor about Charlie Fox as a manager, and the rumor is, now don't quote me on this because I have no way to check it out, but this is what I've read, and I've read it in more than one place. Charlie Fox was the first manager to make a double switch.
Really?
The umpires didn't even know what the hell he was talking about. He said, I want to take the right fielder out. I want to change pitchers. I want the pitcher to hit in the right fielder spot and the new right fielder to hit in the pitcher spot. They said, what are you talking about? And he explained it to them, and they said it was legal. They all got together, said it was legal. It was the first double switch. That's what I heard. Now, that might be apocryphal, but that's a great story.
Ah, that is a very great story. And he was the one that told Stoneham, who did not want it to happen, where they bring up Chris Spire to play shortstop in 71 and put Fuentes at second base for Lanier. And he says, well, this is the way it's going to be, and if it doesn't work out, you can fire me. That's what he told Stoneham. And they won the pennant. And he was a brassy guy, New York guy. What's the difference, basically? Wayne, Peter, you're a Boston Red Sox fan from New York. I don't know. Did you know that, Roger?
No, I did not know that.
So you guys have a lot to talk about. What's the difference between a New York fan and a Boston Red Sox and a Boston fan? And it could have been the Boston Braves, too. There are similarities and differences, I'm sure. And you would know best because you're both a Boston, Peter, because you're both a Boston and an old Brooklyn Dodger fan, too. So am I on the right track? Are there similarities?
You're on the right track. I've always said, if I may just go first, and I'll be as quick as I can here, I always thought, and sometimes when I say this to people, they go, yeah, you know something? That makes a lot of sense. And other people they roll their eyes and go, what are you smoking? But I've always thought that the Red Sox and the Brooklyn Dodgers have a lot in common. And they're fans, everything. First of all, they play in a ballpark that was a mirror of each other. One had a short right field wall with a high fence. The other one had a short left field wall with a high fence. Both stadia just about held 32,000. They had a B on their cap. The stadium was put in the middle of a neighborhood where there was no place for parking. The fans spoke with a weird accent. The teams were either phenomenally great or they made you cry. And
with interesting players, great or
very,
bad.
Very colorful ball players. Very colorful.
Right.
And
Williams, Pearsall.
Very storied history on both sides. And
right.
I always thought they were similar. Now, I don't know what our guest will say, but I thought that they were similar.
Well, to look
Roger?
at the Giants and the Red Sox, well, first of all, you get New York and Boston. You know, they're only a couple of miles apart, for one thing.
Right.
That's
Right.
got to be a contributing factor, okay, in my mind anyway. But I agree with a lot of what Peter said. But I'm not as familiar with the Dodgers as I am, you know, possibly with the Giants to some extent.
Uh-huh.
But the Giants had the short right field porch, you know.
Yeah.
The Red Sox always had the green monster.
Yeah.
Right. What was your first day at the Green Monster like?
You know, the first game I ever went to at Fenway.
Yeah.
Was in Ted Williams' last year. I got to see Ted once. 1960.
Like me and DiMaggio, yeah.
Is that right?
In 51, yes. I got to see, and it was pointed out to me by my grandfather very many times. He said, look, you're seeing Joe DiMaggio. It's the last time you'll ever see him. This is last year. The great Joe DiMaggio. You saw him, and I remember that very well.
Oh, yeah.
Also remember seeing the Giants before they brought up Willie and after they brought up Willie in 51 when they reconfigured everything. So, yeah, we all go back. Can I just interject the dissimilarity between the two teams that stands out to me?
Absolutely.
Well, how about the Red Sox having had, under when Joe Cronin was general manager and Pinky Higgins was, now that was a name that didn't come by him accidentally.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
He tipped a few in his time.
Right. Right, and he was, well, let's just say that those two had in a tryout camp both Willie Mays and Jackie Robinson. Maybe not the same day, but they had their chance, and they found fault with not one but both of them for one reason or another. I don't know.
For one reason. For one reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know the reason.
Yeah.
Right. And a fellow Northern Californian, a fellow by the name of Elijah, and a former Met later on, Elijah Pumpsy Green, was the first black player to play with the Red Sox in 1950. Count them. 12 years. 9. What is it? 12 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yep.
After Jackie was called up.
Right.
So I think that overall, that it was inexcusable, and the way they treated players, I can't think of the first base coach who's a tremendous player. He may be back with them, or may have eventually come back with them. They treated him horribly. Boston treated Bill Russell horribly. So for that reason or another, I mean, comparing Brooklyn, who accepted Jackie when everybody, it wasn't just Boston that was turning Jackie away. It was everybody but Montreal, and they weren't in America, gave Jackie right.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So it wasn't just Boston, but Boston really is pretty far behind racial equality, and Brooklyn is just the absolute opposite of that. So for that
that's
reason,
a good point.
And the similarities in ballparks. Thank you guys for really putting that in my head a little bit and pointing that out. Where do you think you could have lived in Boston, spent your life in Boston? And I want to ask you, Mr. Melin, do you think you could have lived in New York? Just out of curiosity.
New York, as in the city?
Yeah, as in the city.
As in the city. No, I don't think I could have lived in either one for my entire life.
Okay. How about you, Peter?
Oh, I could have lived in Boston easily. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to Boston many, many times. I love it.
It's a good city for a lot of reasons. I mean, many Ivy League schools, libraries. It's just, and it's a pretty city with some culture. So I'll definitely give it that. On other shows, we've talked about the Red Sox and the Yankees rivalry. We'll save that for another time. Would you talk uniforms with us a little bit, Mr. Melin? We were going to talk baseball uniforms from those times when the Giants and Dodgers played. When I met Peter, we were attracted to each other, as it were, by our fanaticism for it, which was down to the baseball uniforms and the caps that were worn at that time. The flannel unis and the wool caps and everything about it. Do you miss with the Red Sox? That's the one thing about the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Giants, to a certain extent the Mets. They've kept the tradition. Certainly the Yankees, the old school unis. Definitely respect those franchises for that. And anything you guys want to take off on that? I'm just throwing an idea out there.
Only that I collect replicas of those uniforms and caps.
Right.
I have an entire closet full of flannel uniforms, and I have an entire room. In fact, I'm lying on the bed right now looking at them. I have 100 caps. About 20 of them are Brooklyn, because the B always changed very, very slightly year to year, etc. I have all the Boston Red Sox hats. I have all the different color combinations and the hanging socks and the B and the red top and the blue top and the whole deal. I got all of that stuff.
They didn't wear the red top for very long. They wore it when Zimmer managed them. I think it was in 76 or I don't.
Yeah, 76, 77, and 78.
Right. Okay. And when they wore the red tops, it never looked right to me for one reason or another. I remember seeing Tiant in that. And,
yes. They're going to wear times this year, by the way. About 13 times I read they're going to have throwback days at Fenway, and they're going to wear those. And by the way, the Mets are going to wear their 86 uniforms about 13 or 14 times.
Well, on Sundays with the stripes and what have you. That's pretty cool.
Right, with the stripes on the shoulders and all of that stuff. But I have a 1908 Red Sox shirt and a 1918 Red Sox shirt. I have a 75 shirt, and then I have them from the 40s up to now. And I got home, I got away, I got the whole deal. I have real Red Sox socks, which are not solid red. They have stripes in them. I got the real ones from back in the early 50s and before. It always amazed me that some years the Red Sox would wear blue undershirts, and some years they would wear red undershirts. It's always a thrilling thing to see what they have on when they open the season.
And I'll tell you something else. Sometimes the lettering over the years has been blue and sometimes red.
On the road. You're absolutely right.
Right. And that changes every now and again. And I wonder what goes into that. Is that something...
That's a money thing, Ralph. That's to sell more shirts.
Well, now it is, but over the years they made those subtle changes. I guess, now it's just, how many can they... Alternative jerseys this, throwback that.
Right. Batting practice caps and all that crap.
Yes. You know something? I got to put this on the air because I've been doing this about 4 years. So at one time or another, when Major League Baseball went from woolen caps to this artificial blend that they have going now, it's called Cool Breeze. And I was really down on that. You're not going to have wool caps anymore. This fabric, this combination, you would not know, whatever it is, that it is not a wool cap. It apparently lasts longer. It keeps in shape, and it really, I haven't bought one yet. I haven't broken down, so.
Right.
It's not that I need another. God knows I've got like a million caps. Every Met cap, every Giant cap, patches and this and that. I'm nuts.
Right.
So I don't need another cap, and I don't think I'll ever buy one. But I browse them. I go to the cap stores, the Lids, and what have you in the malls.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a little porn thing. I don't know.
I'm going to tell you what's good about them, though, Ralph, about these new caps. Not only, like you said, they look and feel like wool, but you get caught in the rain a few times, they don't shrivel up like a yarmulke. The old caps used to shrivel up like a little, nothing. You had to throw them away. They wouldn't fit on your fist,
Off the air, I'm going to tell you a story that I just thought of, mentioned.
Okay.
You'll remind me about something else we talked about a yarmulke. I can't tell this story on the air. I'm going to want to have other people come back someday, and that's not going to be on Mr. Melin. Mr. Melin, you have to realize it's podcast radio. We have fun with this. It's different than regular radio. It's an opportunity to say what's on our mind 100% of the time. We're old people. We don't hold back. So do you have any thoughts? And this isn't a show about politics or anything. We try to keep it. Do you have any thoughts about the way things were, say, in the Prince's day, as compared to the way they are now, and what amazes you, and sociologically, or do you see things that you just every day you get up and you go, "Holy Toledo,"
or something like that?
Right, something like that. Peter and I have been talking for years. We're shocked. I think we grew up when a Republican was Keating, and he was a Democrat, but he was a Republican. He was a Republican, but he was a Democrat. They were all
right.
The differences were so minute, and now we are polarized in a way. You want to, and if you want to relay that to baseball, if you want to. Changes in baseball, anything you want to comment on?
Well, it's pretty hard to comment on some of that, but yes, I definitely agree with you. I'm sure that things have changed dramatically, and I think the difference between the two parties was hair thin back in the 30s, whereas today it's the width of the Union, which is a shame because it shouldn't be that way.
Well said.
The width of the Union. Yeah, absolutely.
Width of the Union. How do you like that? That's a chasm for you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't be. Is there anything particular in baseball, the changes in baseball that particularly shock you? I don't know if you're a DH guy or we're not DH people by nature.
No.
I'm not a DH fan. And Hal, Schumacher was, as you said, was a very respectable hitter. In fact, he held the National League home run record until 55. I think it was 6 home runs he had one year, and don't forget these starting pitchers don't play every day.
Yeah, I think Newcomb broke his record. You're right.
That's correct.
Yeah, Don Newcomb was that. Bob Turley was a good hitter. Don Larson.
Wait a minute. How about changes in baseball? Like I just read something about Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper seems to feel that bat flips and celebratory dances and stuff is good for the game. And he says that people like Johnny Bench and those other old-timers that are dead set against it, that he says they should just lighten up. The game should change. It should be more fun. Pitchers celebrate when they strike somebody out with the bases loaded. Why can't a batter flip his bat when he hits a home run? And, what do you think about that?
I have mixed feelings. If you're asking me, I have mixed feelings about it.
I am asking you, yeah. You have mixed feelings?
Yeah, it is kind of irritating to watch it, but on the other hand, you're absolutely right. I mean, a pitcher, you tell me he doesn't throw his glove up in the air after throwing a no-hitter. I mean, it's the only one that hasn't. And he deserves it. And I think a batter has every right to throw his bat or do whatever, as long as he doesn't hurt anybody.
Here's the problem I have with it. I don't mind if a guy hits a 2-run homer in the bottom of the ninth inning to win the game. He can flip the bat anywhere he wants. But if his team is losing 8-0 in the ninth inning and he hits a home run, what the hell is he doing flipping his bat?
Yeah, I agree.
He just made it 8-1. Come on.
I agree with you.
Good points. Good. Yeah, save it for the Super Bowl. Save your celebration for the big time, not for every little thing. And make it spontaneous too.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to develop a technique for it, you're planning way ahead. You're spending too much time.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Developing that skill and that mindset of, when I hit the home run. Why don't you, examine your grip a little bit or, think about who's pitching. If you're going to apply
if you go on YouTube and you watch a Jackie Robinson home run, even in the World Series, he drops his bat, he puts his head down, he runs almost as fast as he can. Not quite, but he sprints around the bases with his head down.
Absolutely.
That was the home run back in the day. And that's the problem I had with the movie 42. In the movie 42, they have the actor hitting a home run and then standing at the plate admiring it like Reggie Jackson. Jackie never did that. Never. Never.
Thanks for pointing that out. Thanks for being clear with that.
I'll tell you something else. Bobby Thompson didn't do it either.
No, he didn't. And he had every right to do it.
If anybody did, he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Sal Evars should have flipped his bat at the same time Bobby Thompson flipped his, and that would have been something. Now, if anybody out there, it'd be nice. It's just going to be you and Peter and I getting that one. Thanks for recommending that book to me and ruining all my boyhood fantasy, Peter.
Oh, about the buzzer. Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
The ethylene green. Yeah, right.
The ethylene green. Hey, we've reached the end of another episode, as they say, and I think it was a pleasure having you. I hope you come back and chat with us again. Let me know how the book is doing. It's on Amazon, and it's in a lot of bookstores. What is the official? It's the biography of Prince Hal Schumacher, and I had to pronounce that right at least once, or I may have to take some hemlock if I couldn't pronounce the name of the book once in the show. What's the official title of the book?
It's Hal Schumacher, the Prince of the New York Giants, and the Pride of Dolgeville.
Cool.
I
like it.
Very cool. And, I'm one of those that I love hearing not only the people say New York Giants in the baseball sense. I love when they say Brooklyn Dodgers in the baseball. We have both gone back to the point, Peter and I, Roger, we've both gone back to the point where we enjoy the memories of both teams because without the memories of the Dodgers, the memories of the Giants would be absolutely dimmed, and vice versa. And I'm getting into this a lot because Peter has taken me back a little bit beyond 51. When I went to my first game, I thought baseball began in 47 when they brought up Jackie. Really hasn't. It has a storied history that goes back beyond that. So I highly recommend it. You're very well spoken. I highly recommend the book from that standpoint. And it's always interesting to me to read about Depression times and how baseball was a big biz during Depression. Baseball didn't really suffer as much as the average person during the Depression. The players made very, very good bucks. And what did he do with his money? Did he die, Hal? What did Hal do with his money, Roger?
He was pretty secretive about what he did with his money, but I know that he was what's the word I'm looking for?
Successful?
Well, he was successful, but he didn't flaunt it, and he was
okay. He was conservative, or
he was conservative, and
but he lived a good life. He wasn't one of those ball players that don't do well after he, as you say, he was college educated, and that makes him special. In those days, a ball player, probably not very many were college educated, I can assure you that.
No, they weren't.
Some of them couldn't even read and write.
That's right.
Right. Some of them can't today.
And actually, Hal...
and some podcasters can't either, so...
Years later...
I'm not throwing any stones whatsoever, dear Lord. I'm not. Sometimes you don't have. Sometimes there's a universal language for all of us, and it's music and it's love. So sometimes what's written is oftentimes a bunch of hooey anyway. So anyway, I'm just enjoying my evening, which I enjoy every week with you, my friend. Thank you, Peter. And please,
thank you very much.
Yes. Please come back, and I promise I wasn't having too much fun if it seems that way. Okay, I don't know if there's some sort of rule I'm going to be struck down if I'm enjoying life too much. It's Jewish paranoia. How could I be enjoying life when all around me, ... You understand?
Yes.
Roger, again, thank you. We enjoyed you, and we'll catch you next week, Peter. And
okay. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine, both of you.
Yeah.
Oh,
really.
great.
And again, those pipes, I'm so envious. It's unbelievable. I'm going to take down Mr. Podcaster from my title anymore. I'm just an old podcaster. Terrific.
Give me
to everybody out there, just keep on keeping on. It's good life. It's up and down. It's a roller coaster. Ride it out when it gets bad, and we're all happy to be here. So we'll catch you next week. We do. Thank you, gentlemen. See ya.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thanks again.
All right, it's not going off, so everybody hang up and we'll be done.